Hello world! Welcome back to another video on my channel. Thank you for coming back. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're not subscribed by now, please do hit the subscribe button. And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. You can hit me up right there. So this video is for you if you are a artist, budding artist, want to be budding artist, want to be artist something, maybe painter sometime, kind of sometimes paints maybe, but does not have motivation to keep going. Just bored and want to watch a random YouTube video about art, I guess. Today's video is going to be my top 10 painting tips. I did do something like this on IGTV, if you're following me on Instagram, and if you're not, but it's top 10 painting tips. In my experience, I've watched countless videos, read a lot of articles, books, collected information from everywhere about how to be a better artist. And I think it goes back to defining yourself as an artist, but also then the actual practice of how can I paint better, how can I get better results and stuff like that. So this video is basically aimed to just sort of condense those, and it's sort of like a list of all the tips and tricks that have worked for me. When I did this video for IGTV, it was condensed to 10 minutes. Although with this video, I can be broad and elaborate and talk more in detail about what points I am highlighting and why there are certain tips and tricks and why they've been helpful to me in my personal experience as well. Okay, let's go. Tip number 1. This is from my mentor, Maria Pete in Dubai, from Maria's Art Studio. For all my artsy peeps in Dubai, hit up Maria's Art Studio. They're super cool. They do classes for adults and children of all ages. Amazing, amazing, amazing place. Check it out. She taught me that practice doesn't always make perfect. Sometimes it's guided practice that makes all the difference. So now what's the difference between practice and guided practice? If I do the same thing expecting different results, so if I keep doing the same thing and think I'm gonna get better, especially with artistic technique and the way that painting works, my results aren't going to change. I can't just draw from my imagination and expect to get better. It doesn't work like that, especially in the art world. Here's where guided practice comes into play. So guided practice is things like using reference images, going back, taking notes. Making notes in your own artwork is super, super, super important. I remember this one project that I was working on, I just couldn't get it right, and I was trying to go large scale, which is another tip that comes further down in this video. But I was going really big, and I just didn't have the basic concepts sorted first. I was trying to draw from my imagination, I was trying to paint colors I didn't know. It just didn't make sense. I was trying to put shadows where they weren't supposed to be. If I continued making art that way, I would never get anywhere. My art would just be consistently bad. It would just get worse, if anything. So here's where guided practice comes into play, where what you want to do is find reference images. You want to make notes in your artwork, be able to look at what you did, what the result is, go back to the drawing board, read your notes, start again with a different approach. Look at reference images. Super, super, super important. I've probably said this like 3 times by now. Alright, tip number 2 is paint smaller pieces. In my personal experience, when I tried to start out, everyone told me that to get a following on Instagram, to get noticed, you need to have these massive, beautiful statement pieces. And although I still believe that's true on a large extent, you need to start out small. Creating things like studies, samples, super important. You need to understand things like colors. You want to understand the placement of your shadows. You understand the right tints, tones, shades that you want to use. And that works a lot better on a smaller piece rather than going straight up on a big piece. So paint smaller, more manageable pieces first before you take the leap and go into these massive large pieces. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is to just paint daily. Although I understand it's much, much, much easier said than done, painting daily is something that really affects the final work. You can see the difference. I could definitely see the difference when I started doing it, but that doesn't mean getting a lot done. I don't want to get a shit ton done. I'm just painting for the sake of, okay, this is me touching the brush. This is me getting the paint onto the canvas. Even if it's a smaller piece, I'm getting something done. In my opinion, painting for 1 hour for 10 consecutive days is way better than painting for 10 hours in one day. Because of the frustration that builds up, you want to take a break, you want to look back at a piece. Always paint daily. Doesn't have to be for an hour, doesn't have to be for 2 hours. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if you start somewhere, once you start painting, your hand's not going to want to stop. So I actually have a personal rule where I It's horrible. Sometimes like it gets really horrible, but I never put away my art stuff. So I'll always have my brushes out, always have my paints out, and always have some canvas that I'm working on somewhere in the area that I am. So there's no excuse. It's there. Everything's set out. Everything's laid out. It's amazing. It's so easy. Even if I'm painting for 5 minutes a day, I'm getting something done. Tip number 4. No, that's 8. Oop. Tip number 4. Tip number 4. Okay. Another thing by Maria Pete is what she taught me was to always practice in black and white first. So if you're dabbling in color, it's always good to practice in black and white, and it'll teach you a lot more about values before you dive into colors. Just because trying to do a piece in black and white, if you follow my Instagram, you see that I love doing black and white. Just because I find it a little more challenging, but also it looks so much nicer, and that's just my opinion, don't kill me. Maria Pete always starts her students off with black and white, and then she moves into color. And it gives them an understanding of values like nothing else. You don't want to just dive into color. If you're struggling with things like shadows, if you're struggling with placement of color, black and white is the way to go. I'm stressing this because black and white. Yeah. Okay. Tip number 5. So tip number 5 is, well, it's not really a tip. It's more just like a little tiny piece of advice thing. But for every awesome piece that you have, which is very rare as an artist, which is very, like, I'm very rarely proud of my pieces, but for every awesome piece that you have, you're gonna have at least 10, maybe 10 pieces behind you, like, that you don't like at all, that help you get to that one piece. So you've probably seen, for those of you who follow my Instagram, you've probably seen me post pictures and then like post pictures of painting, and I go and I realize I don't like it, and I completely gesso over the canvas. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's almost like just painting white over a canvas and then starting again. I completely gesso over the canvas and just start again, because why waste a canvas? Just because I'm not proud of my work, or proud of that particular painting. And I will keep doing that till I get to this like perfect piece that I absolutely love. And that's okay. Do not expect perfection from yourself all the time, because where's the fun in that? Where's the learning? What are you doing? You know? Tip number 6. So tip number 6 is to ignore blatant criticism. I know this might sound stupid, but hear me out. So it's ignore criticism when it doesn't come from a good place. There are a lot of times that I've heard non-artsy people, God, I sound so like pretentious right now, but a lot of people just say, oh, I don't like that piece. And that's fine, that's your personal opinion. Here's the time that you actually do listen to criticism. You listen to criticism when it's constructive. So 2 people in a room, for example, telling me I don't like that piece versus I don't like this piece because I feel like the shadows could have been delivered better if done like this. I'm not gonna get anything from the person 1. I'm just like, hey, you know what, you go yourself. But number 2, yeah, okay, I understand why you might think so, and then it gives me more motivation to go back and look at it from a different perspective. But just saying I don't like a piece, and people are like that. People are going to say, oh, I don't like that. Why? Just because. Just because is not a valid form of an opinion. It's not. So always ignore blatant criticism. What you want is to listen to constructive criticism and use that to channel your art and the direction it goes in. So an example of this tip was a few years ago I used to run an art exhibition for charity called Artex, and it was based in the UAE. A bunch of different children would paint, and the funds would go to kids with special needs. Beside the point though, what I realized was that this was a living example of beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Because I would watch one person, this actually happened, 100%. Not gonna tell you who it is. But this one person came to the exhibition and said, this looks like it was painted by someone who was blind. Ha. But then, while the person said, just after the person said that, I felt so good. Just after the person said that, another person came in and said, this painting moves me because I understand this concept from it, and this, and this, and this. And it's amazing. So people are gonna have their own opinions anyways. So unless someone's actually giving you proper constructive criticism, what is the point? Do not waste your time. People are not gonna like things. It's fine, move on. Tip number 7. Okay, so tip number 7 is if you are trying to use your art to make everyone in the room happy, you're doing something wrong. Tip number 8. So tip number 8 is to, when you're getting more professional and you're trying to do things like realism, or you're trying to do things like faces, never ever ever paint off a white surface. This is because when you're painting a white canvas, a blank white canvas, the canvas is reflecting light into your eye. That affects the judgment of your colors, of your tints, tones, shades, and it just doesn't work. So what you're gonna do is give your canvas a light tint, a light gray tint, a light peach tint. This has always helped me judge color more accurately, especially with things like oil painting. With acrylic, a little less, but with oil painting where you want your colors to be exact, never ever ever paint off a white surface. Tip number 9. So this is actually one of my favorite artists. I've been following him for years and years and years. His name is Marcin Rogal, and you can follow his Instagram. It's Mr. Art Pride right there. One great piece of advice that he gave me through my journey was that no one ever cares how long an art piece takes. No, and this translates. So when I was younger and I would paint, I would be so happy with how much I could do in such little time that I would sort of, when people would ask me, oh, how long did this piece take you? I'd be like, oh, this piece only took me 3 hours, or this piece only took me 5 hours, or can you believe I only painted this in a day? And I've noticed a lot of other artists doing that. I've stopped doing that because what I've realized is that when you say something like that, although it's coming from a place of, wow, I've achieved so much in those 3 hours, like I must be good or I must be improving. What I was doing was devaluing my own art, because it's like, oh, if I can do that in 3 hours, where's the value? What's the point? So when people ask me now, how long did a piece take? I sort of stray away from the answer and I don't give them a clear answer, or just exaggerate the truth just a little bit. And I find that people really respect that a lot more. The longer that a piece takes, the more time that someone's gonna think went into the piece. So why would you want to devalue your own work? Finally, here we are. Tip number 10 is, I cannot stress this enough, invest in better art materials. Growing up through my experience, the first type of paint I used was acrylic paint. I never had the money to splurge on more expensive paint, and the quality of my work suffered because of that. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be paint. It could be brushes, palettes, just in general, art materials. When I shop for art materials, I'm very, very, very conscious about, well, obviously cost, but also quality of products. Cost and quality are two things that normally go hand in hand in the art world, but not always. Because you can get the best student grade and it's gonna be much cheaper than the most basic artist grade. When you get into art, if you're already in art, you probably already know this, but just be aware of that. Investing in better art materials does give you a better result. Alright, well, there we have it. That was my top 10 art tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, this video might not be for everyone, but honestly, if this video helps even one artist, it will be of some good. Please do let me know, either comment below or send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what tip you sort of like the most or have resonated with. And even if you disagree, let me know. I'd really like to know your opinion. Thank you so much and stay tuned. Ideally, I want to post every week. I couldn't post this week because I was really sick and had to go to the hospital. Whatever, not important. But yeah, thank you very much. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit me up on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, turn your notifications on. Thank you very much. See ya.